Very nice to be with you again. It has now been, I can't remember how many days. I think it was Saturday when I spoke to you last. A couple of days in crypto seems like a very long time. We've been extremely busy setting everything up for a couple of things about to come, which I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on. Basically, I guess without really further ado, we can perhaps start with questions. And if something comes up that I feel needs some kind of update, then we can of course do that. I suppose generally I could say that we're basically still working on the same stuff. We're still, setting up our own structures and still working on the product launch and that sort of thing. So not an awful lot has changed in the last couple of days, but you are, of course, free to ask any questions that you might have on those subjects. So with that, I am more than happy to open the floor already. And I see we already have Melissa's asking a question, and I already feel my heart jumping into my throat as he does so, but let's hear it. So Melissa's, the floor is yours.
Hi, Gard. Just a simple one, probably like something for the future. We've been discussing and talking about how difficult it is for new investors whom are probably sitting on a central exchange to buy anything on the Binance Smart Chain. You need to set up a wallet, PancakeSwap and whatnot, and slippage and everything like that. Would it be possible in the future that EverRise creates sort of a service such as EverRise has a bank account? People would be able to transfer fiat into it with a reference, which would state their wallet address, and EverRise provides a service that whatever fiat they get on that sort of day, they would sort of buy Rise with it and send it to the guy who wants to have some Rise. So basically, for new investors who are not capable of setting all these things up, but maybe are just capable to set up just an ordinary wallet, would that be something that EverRise might consider, or a banking license would need it for it, or something like that? I have no idea. So that's a question.
Yes, it's a very good question, and I should first say that it is absolutely true that it's not the easiest thing in the world to buy stuff on PancakeSwap. I remember when I first did it and I actually managed it, being quite a careful and sort of vanilla investor myself, I felt the need to basically check and double check every step, and there's about 4 along the way. So I did feel like there was, so it's kind of a trust issue, right? Because you have to be able to trust each and every step of that service or each and every step of that process in order to be able to invest with any sort of sense of comfort about it or sense of security about it. So I absolutely agree that it's needlessly difficult. It is, however, the service that we're currently sort of stuck with for the foreseeable future. We would very much like to make it a lot easier for people. But as you point out at the end, it does involve some different kinds of licenses. So currently when people buy, they actually buy it from PancakeSwap. They don't buy it from us. We just make it available on PancakeSwap, or we create the liquidity pool and people trade in and out of the liquidity pool. If we were to trade it ourselves directly, and I've seen some tokens do this, it would be inviting trouble before we have the proper kinds of licenses for it. So we would love to, but first things first, we'll have to, set things up properly and apply for the proper licenses. And when we have them, we will very likely do something like that. But that's some way in the future. So don't start thinking that this is going to happen in the next week. But it's a very, very good question, and we would absolutely love to do that.
All good. Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa's. And I joke, of course, when I talk about these heart attacks that Melissa's gives me. It's just that he always has such good questions and such kind of they're very simple questions that take me ages to respond to because they're actually quite complicated. So I really enjoy his questions. So I'm only joking when I say that I get heart attacks when he asks me questions. But I would be happy to take questions from anybody else if anybody has any, or otherwise I can just start singing karaoke or whatever it is that you guys want me to do.
Hey, real quick, God, how you doing today?
Hi, Rocco.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was going to ask, could you disclose to us the price that EverOwn will be going for once it hit the market? Or
If I basically can't. If I were to read out loud the confidentiality part of our agreement, it actually covers this one as well. So I sadly can't release that until we actually hit the market and it becomes public knowledge, I'm afraid.
okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. It is kind of how it is, but it is closer to market every day, so you won't have to wait long, I'm sure. And anybody else want to have any?
I'm going to drop one quick one since no one's coming forward.
Sorry, hang on, Melissa. I think there actually are quite a few questions here. So we have Tooting777. I think we've spoken before. So go ahead, Tooting.
Yeah, I've kind of been MIA for a while, but question is, have we released the tokens that have kind of joined the wait list for the apps that are coming out, or at least not the tokens, but how many tokens?
Well, we haven't really released a list. I can say that it's last I checked, I can say that it is a fairly significant number, less than 100, but in that, like
double digits.
Very, very much in the double digits. The only issue is,
good.
and the reason we don't release even a number is because, of course, we have to first check which one of those are actual, our actual tokens and our actual projects and projects that we might want to work with. So, I mean, if we got 4,000, responses or something, and only, let's say that only 40 of them were good quality projects that we would actually like to talk to, then it wouldn't make much sense to say that we have a list of 4,000. It would be misleading information, basically, to tell you that this. So that's the only reason that we don't really release that information.
Okay, and whenever that process happens and they are using our apps, is that going to be posted on the website so that the community can check, to make sure that stuff is on there?
I'm not sure if I understood the question, but we are working on a number of platforms in terms of, so we're making partnership deals or negotiating partnership deals with a number of platforms that would then include this information, whether their contract has been announced to EverRise.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Kind of like like if we wanted to check Certic for what tokens are have gone through audit, kind of the same thing, right? If communities out there want to check to see if their stuff is locked, or where do they go? It's kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah. So that sort of system. So we're working on the best way to do it. There are certain partnership negotiations that may work out really well, and I'm sure you will all be very happy with the kind of partnerships that, if we manage to get them, that I'm sure you'll all be very pleased. That's one option, so that our partners kind of do this sort of listing procedure for us, and we can of course add those kinds of lists on our own website and this sort of thing. So we will be making that kind of information available for sure.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, Tooting. And who is next? I think Peter Sticks, whom I think we've also, in fact, I think it's all the All-Stars again. I would before you speak, I would also encourage others who have not perhaps asked a question before or feel a little bit shy. I'm actually quite a nice guy and try to answer every question that you can. But Peter, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Gard. I had a question in relationship to the Kraken, and I know we've talked in the past about the Guard index and how big is big enough. And we were talking this past weekend on the voice chat about some comment and things that we discussed in the past about kind of collateralizing the Kraken, or potentially collateralizing the Kraken. And I was wondering if there's anything that you can share with us about maybe abstract ideas about how could that potentially be used.
So so there's maybe a couple of I'll maybe need to make a few distinctions here. So the Kraken money itself, or the assets that are in the Kraken, will be there in BNB. So there's no plan or even technical possibility to have it kind of have that money be asset backed. What we do have, however, is a collateralized token, because what we have is that reserve liquidity pool, which we call the Kraken, or which the community calls the Kraken. So with that token, we can actually do all sorts of things. Once the Kraken gets big enough, we can employ certain kinds of systems which people with a financial background might start to kind of see take shape. So with the Kraken and with it having this kind of its own little reserve deposit system, what we can do is branch out into a reserve deposit system of other tokens, for example, or other sorts of projects, as long as the Kraken itself is big enough, right? So we can actually kind of sell the service, as it were, of a kind of safe value transfer system that's backed up by the RISE token, because the RISE token itself is backed up by the reserve liquidity pool. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I definitely need to learn more on that topic, but I get what you mean. Thank you.
Thanks. And yeah, it's actually the thing that really attracted me to this project in the first place. I was very excited to see, the clever system that Titan was building, and how it actually closely resembles the real life, or the I shouldn't say real life, because finance is hardly real life in its own way, but what I mean is the kind of legacy financial system actually operates in a very similar way, and it had a phase in its history in the I don't know how far back in the history you guys want to go to, but in the history of money, there was a point in time when everybody was printing their own private money. They were known as promissory notes. I mean, they still exist, but they were very, very widely used in various places at various times. But for example, in America in the 1800s, in England and in the UK in the 1700s, and so on and so forth, they had this problem, which is that their value fluctuated wildly, just absolutely wildly. And a lot of these things were issued by people who were basically fraudsters. So what they did is they backed up their promissory notes with a certain amount of assets, like say gold or silver. And what they then would do is they would run off with the silver. So leaving people holding the promissory notes that say, once you present this note at my house, I will give you £1 of silver sterling. That's why pound sterling is called pound sterling, by the way. So you can probably see the parallels here. Back in those days, people used to run off with the liquidity pool, or with the assets in the liquidity pool, and that caused these huge fluctuations in value when it came to these promissory notes. The way that system was actually fixed, and the way that system then gave birth to the modern monetary system, is actually through something that looks very, very much like EverRise. It's just that we have a different name for that system. And they started this reserve deposit system in a bunch of places. It started, the first modern one was the Bank of England, and that's how that system was stabilized. I'm not saying that we necessarily are going to, fix the entire crypto world, but it's very much the kind of thing that if we manage to get big enough, and if our Kraken manages to get big enough, we might actually have a shot of doing that. And I've said before that if that happens, and some people are holding their RISE tokens at that point, then the only problem you're going to have in life is to figure out whether you want gold-plated driveways, or whether you want just actual gold bars to be on your driveway.
Yeah, I remember that coming before. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Peter. And I hope I didn't go on too long a tirade there, but it really is very exciting, and people should. I hope you share my excitement in that regard. Yeah, hang on. There was somebody had somebody, a non-malicious person was asking a question. Okay, there we go. I think it's Bishop here, and then JR, I'll give you the floor afterwards. So Bishop, go ahead.
Hey, Gard, thank you. Actually, I had a quick question about Cardano, because Charles Hopkins released a update, and his major concern with their ecosystem was security and exactly all the applications what we're providing. And he offered the community to reach out and apply to their Catalyst program where they can receive funds for exactly what we're making. And I understand that we might be able to, work with different chains and, they can use our apps, but would it be possible to apply to that Catalyst program and have some devs to be able to port over to other chains?
Well, I'll certainly look into it. I mean, we in the team are great fans of the Cardano project and what they're trying to achieve. And yeah, I mean, it would be a fantastic contact to make. We have some contacts in sort of similar-ish kind of things. But yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely open to it. And I haven't seen that particular video or announcement, if that was in the last
just happened
days.
Friday. So yes, and he invited the community to for security, and yeah, I think it would be a good match maybe where we can acquire some funds to hire some more devs even.
Yeah, I mean, I think I keep asking the development team if they want me to hire more devs, and they keep telling me they're fine for now, but they'll need them. They'll need them after EverRise. So they seem to be in a good place. We are actually in a position to hire more if we need them. We have a lot of applications already, and I've even interviewed a few developers to come in as helpers, and some of them are more junior than others, and some of them are more senior than others. But certainly very, very promising developers have already reached out to us, and I have interviewed them or given them their first interview. We will probably be onboarding a few of them relatively soon after we finish EverRise, but I'll take the cues from the development team there. So on that regard, we don't actually have any shortage, but of course we would love to work with Cardano in some form or other. So I'll certainly look into that, and thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you, Gard.
And now I think I promised JR to take the floor. So if you're still here, JR. JR Montebags, yo, I can see you.
Sorry, yep, I'm here, Gard. I'm sorry, working at the same time. Quick question.
Yeah.
Did anything ever come of, more conversations as far as the KYC side of things with EverRise? If you guys came to a consensus on that or still up in the air? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, as I said, it's only been a few days since we kind of started to turn that ship and so on, but we are certainly considering it very. I guess what I could say is that we're leaning towards more strict controls and kind of manual controls over who we accept. I mean, the feedback from the community and on every channel is just absolutely overwhelming in favor of that view. So, and I mean, the points that people are making are fair and well reasoned, and it's certainly, I'm personally certainly leaning towards that. It might mean that the onboarding process will be much slower. We'll try to develop some systems for that, and we're still working out kind of our technical capacity on that. We certainly do have all kinds of capacities, but the only issue is whether we can develop systems that make the onboarding process faster, so that if we get, let's say, 50 projects, that it won't take a year to get through those 50 projects, because that wouldn't really be fit for purpose. We are also considering a tiered system, whereby we might have a more kind of basic automated sweep of the contracts, just to make sure that there's no honeypots or anything like that. And then have another kind of slightly more expensive service where we would personally go through things like, the contract or its coding, and maybe even things like regulatory strategy, because people don't realize how important that is. And we happen to have that expertise in the team, so we can actually go through people's regulatory sort of strategies and whether they even have any, and this sort of thing. And then we could maybe give some kind of mark of give some kind of score, a little bit like Certic, that we would say, this team has a good contract, but they should rethink their strategy about regulation, or they should rethink their strategy about sales. I don't know, So we are. It's a very long answer, very very long way of saying that we are very very seriously considering it. We have a few options on the table. We are leaning towards having those sorts of tighter controls. So yeah, but the like I said, the feedback we've got is just absolutely overwhelming. I keep getting these on Twitter. I keep getting them here, on Reddit, everywhere. People just keep saying that that's what they want, and the arguments are persuasive. So we are certainly listening to the community on that. And anyone else want to jump in?
Hello, guys. I have a question actually. It's regarding the video BitBoy had published earlier about the reflection issues. Do you have any news you can share with us, or maybe you don't have anything? But I was wondering. Thank you.
Sorry, did you repeat what video did you mean? You mean the BitBoy video, or?
Yeah, the BitBoy video.
Yes. So, I mean, with us, we happily, the issue was pretty much resolved before it was an issue. I mean, we already caught the CZ article on Medium a couple of weeks ago, and we were actually discussing it in some length. And I know that the technical team was certainly discussing it very closely. So we were kind of aware that this sort of issue might be there and might affect us. The issue is completely fixed if it ever did affect us. Our technical team has given very kind of thorough answers on our situation, and it looks more than satisfactory. So there really seems to be no concern there. We also then reached out to BitBoy and his team, and we are in contact with them. I mean, it is in some ways awkward that they mentioned our name in connection to this sort of problem, because we do actually want to make sure that our contract is not susceptible to that sort of thing. What is a little bit more problematic about BitBoy's video was the rather exaggerated way in which he was presenting the problem. He was saying something like that this will be the end of any contract that ever took any part of SafeMoon's system or anything like that. And I mean, that is just an completely exaggerated version of events. The hack is not enormous. It actually works by siphoning off tiny amounts here and there. And in the process, they end up using quite a lot of money for gas. So they actually end up with quite a small amount of money. The way that they make their money is that they run the same scam over 1,000 different contracts. And that's how they get it. So it's a little bit like, I forget that movie now, but there's a movie where these guys siphon off, the rounding errors in the billing of their company. I forget what that movie is called now. Office Space, I think, is what it's called. It's a little bit like that hoax. And so it's a complete exaggeration to say that anybody would be destroyed by it, because if you take, let's say that you manage to take $100 from our liquidity pool over a month, that's hardly gonna, I mean, it's not nice, but it's hardly gonna destroy us. So I think it was just a very exaggerated way of saying it. I think he perhaps if he had been prudent, he wouldn't have said it in quite such an exaggerated way. And we will certainly be discussing that with him or with his team. But other than that, we're actually grateful that he's pointing these things out, and grateful also to CZ, who was the original person who actually pointed this out. So it's good that these kinds of security flaws are pointed out. We happen to have fixed ours if it ever affected us, and we are in touch with his team. So that's pretty much all there is to say about that video and anything to do with it. But watch this space. If anything happens on that regard, I'll give you an update.
Thank you. Response to everything I had asked last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will try to make my answers a little shorter, but it's a topical question, of course, and we did have to do some trickery in the background. I should actually take this opportunity to say I was asleep when the video came out. I should take this opportunity to just congratulate and thank our team members, TJ, who was very, very quick on the trigger, and David, who put a couple of things together for us so that we could leverage some contacts. So that was all very, very swiftly, and of course Titan, who made sure that the contract itself is healthy. So the team really responded to this extremely quickly, and it's all sort of being taken care of. Anyway,
Just
any
a
other
comment.
questions on anything else? I see Melissa's.
So another thing on that, what I thought was interesting on
yes.
that video is the first name on that list was EverRise, which I thought was a lot of people are looking at EverRise. Just that was the way I took it. Even though some of the stuff was kind of, our contract is not renounced and stuff like that. There's a lot of misconception on it, but I thought that was interesting. Didn't mean to cut you off there. Just wanted to note it.
No, that's a good point, and thank you for pointing it out. I mean, it's absolutely true. It's the first actual token name that they mention. I mean, apart from they said something like Safe Moon, or he said something like Safe Moon style contract or something like that. But on the actual list of tokens, EverRise was mentioned first, and then if you paid attention to the end of the video, you would have seen that he was basically talking about the problems associated with renouncing your contract and not being able to make changes. Now, I only wish there was some kind of product whereby you could renounce your contract, but then if you need to make changes to it, still take it back. I only wish there was a that. But anyway, thank you for the comment. I think I better give Melissa's the floor. I think he might explode if I don't. So, or unless maybe he just already left. Let's see. Is Melissa still here? No, I think I pushed his patience too far. But if anybody else likes to ask a question, then I'm all ears.
I'm still here, Garth. I'm still here.
Okay, very good. Yes. So go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. No, just gonna mute. No, thanks. Just my question. I think JR was reading off my piece of paper. It's within KYC, like it's that goes into that direction. We had an hour-long discussion on the voice chat. Basically, some people were saying whether teams or projects will need to identify themselves to EverRise. And then I myself and the majority of the people in the voice chat said that, of course, at least EverRise needs to know who they're dealing with, at least the person, someone of course, those projects do not need to dox to their investors or dox publicly, but as with every contract out there, mobile phone, utility bills, whatnot, you just need to say at least who you are, especially if we go down that route that we are going to have whatever, like financial legal department, you hiring people and whatnot. Which country on earth would let a company exist out there who says, okay, I'm generating revenue, but where this revenue comes from, I don't know. I can't tell you who sends me all that cash. So would be money laundering in itself. So a very basic question to me, will projects have to identify to EverRise, or is that the counter argument was, well, that's policing of the DeFi space. That's how the space works, everybody's sort of unknown and whatnot. But I think Well, that's the only argument they had. And the second one would be, someone told me that you're going to announce something today, not only an ordinary Q&A, but you're going to announce something. Is that true? That's it.
Yes, I'll take those questions in order. So we've been having quite in parts quite in-depth discussions about the identification processes, and it's probably fair to say that some among our team are more sort of are thinking more like crypto people, and then there are people like me who are from the legal world, and part of my job, of course, is to try and make sure that our systems plug in to the legal system in the right sort of way, so that we don't, raise any sort of red flags with any regulators and then accidentally get crushed like that. So I will say that we are very much aware of money laundering regulations and anti-money laundering regulations, so these so-called KYC, or know your client rules, as they're called in America. And we will be following those. There are, of course, different kinds of services and different kinds of amounts that might not require KYC rules to be implemented. So I mean, just on a very general level, right? If you are busking in the street, so you're singing your songs and people give you money, that's not covered by an anti-money laundering rule, because that's the kind of service that you can give to people without needing to follow anti-money laundering regulations. There are ways in which we could structure our business so that we probably wouldn't be caught by them, but with these closer controls, I mean, it was the first thing I actually told Titan about this, is that if we want to make it entirely, even if we want to make it entirely passive, I'm still going to work out whether we need to follow the anti-money laundering rules, because, or laws rather, because we don't want to fall foul of any requirements, any regulatory requirements that apply to us. So, but certainly with these kind of closer controls, it becomes more and more likely that they will, and if they will, then I will make sure that we follow them. And that might mean that some people don't want to use it, but I think overall in the long run, it will mean that the crypto space will gain a little bit more legitimacy, because every project that uses EverRise will at least be able to tell their own investors that even though we're not doxing personally to the whole community, and I can see very good reasons why one wouldn't, we have still complied with the anti-money laundering rules that apply to EverRise, so that they can tell them, look, we're using EverRise. That means we can't be total frauds because we have gone through, certain basic checks and balances. You see what I mean? So it's not, so it is a trade-off. Some people may not want to work with us because of it, but then those people are probably the ones that would have run off with the gold that was being deposited when they gave out their promissory notes. So, we basically don't want to associate with frauds, and this is what we've been saying, is that people should start demanding these kinds of things from their own project leaders. So if you are invested in a project, you should demand, or at least strongly request or strongly suggest to the developers and to the core team that they have a regulatory strategy and that they use a service like EverRise, because it will mean greater legitimacy on their project. Now, I do appreciate that there is a concern about a decentralized finance system having these kinds of controls, but frankly, these controls are not optional. People have an idealized, head in the clouds view of the world if they think that the law doesn't apply to you just because you use crypto. It is just a matter of time. If regulations are flaunted left, right, and center, then it's just a matter of time before that stuff gets shut down. So that's why it's important for us to follow these rules if they apply to us, right? So if it's the kind of busking type contract, then of course we won't have to do anything with the projects. But if we have more substantial services that are not entirely passive, then we may well have to do that. And if so, then we will. It's not a question of, the evil government coming after your money or anything like that. It's just that, we will need to know who we do business with, because there's no way to make a contract with an unknown person. So that's all. I mean, I do realize that this goes against a lot of the kind of idealism that attaches to the crypto space, but frankly, sometimes idealism has to give way to realism, and that's what we're here to do. Anyway, another very long answer, but your other very good question, Melissa's, and this is probably the one that's going to give me the heart attack, is if there's going to be an announcement today. I wonder if I should pre-announce this announcement. There will be an announcement, but I would rather leave it to the end, because it will probably mean that this Q&A will get another, all of the questions will be on that announcement. So I'll leave it at the end, but there will be an announcement at the end of this, and not as big as what I just said might make it seem.
Hey, Gard.
Much good, 100%.
A follow-up question.
Peter wants to jump in again.
Yeah. Just curious, and I know I asked you privately. Would a multi-tier EverRise service be implemented? I don't know if you can answer that directly or not.
Well, we're looking into it, is what I can say, and it's a very good option. It is, in some ways, it would be like a midpoint between having to do a lot of checks that are quite slow to do, and having a completely passive service. Is if we gave people the option, you can renounce your contract first, and you can use the completely passive service and pay us a little bit for that. And if you want the more extensive service, then you can sign up for the waiting list for that, and then we'll get to you when we get to you. So that is one possibility. I shouldn't yet disclose, and in fact, we haven't quite made up our mind about that anyway. So there's actually not much to disclose there. But
thank you.
But yeah, that's what we're thinking about. It is certainly there's a strong possibility that we might do it like that. And anybody else?
I got a question.
Hi, Gard. Can I ask a question if I'm allowed to?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Do you have like a sales target, or kind of like in the pre-sale you have a hard cap or soft cap when we launch the EverRise, if you're allowed to share it to us?
You mean like a target number of projects that we would like to have on board before we launch, or
not the target number, but regardless of the whitelist, like the amount, or like you have a amount of BNB or whatever the cost for the EverRise when you launch. So, and from that, when you have the target, like if we meet the target or not, and then like action plans will be needed to do. So kind of like that stuff.
Well, we do have a pricing strategy on it, and it's probably fair to say that projects that want to join early and are willing to kind of undertake the process early, those projects will get a better price. I can't really say whether we have a kind of target amount of money that we're looking to accumulate from our potential sales before we launch. There's also problems associated with launching something that isn't quite sort of publicly there yet. So there's a few things that we're kind of making sure that we dot the I's on and cross the T's on. But there certainly is a sales strategy, I can tell you that much, and there is a pricing strategy, and early projects are getting better prices. That's certainly part of it.
Thank you so much, Gord. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Lance. And who's next? Danny's next. So go ahead, Danny. The floor is yours.
Hey, Gard. Thanks for letting me ask a question. Just curious if you guys are looking into getting ad revenue, and if so, assuming that they would actually be projects, would you be allowing projects that are not renounced on EverRise to purchase ads?
Well, I can say on a general level that we're looking for multiple ways to monetize our services. We're not really concerned with things like ads right now. I mean, we have products, and those products are our main concern. But of course, if we see good opportunities, then we'll start planning those strategies. But so it's probably kind of too early to say with such specificity as a good answer to your question would require what that strategy would be, because it's such early days for that kind of talk. We are thinking about these sorts of things, but it's really not. We're so busy with EverRise and its launch and the incorporation and getting all the paperwork in order that we're really not concerned with that kind of stuff now. But we probably will be in the near future. This, by the way, also applies to. I know that a lot of people have been asking me about merch or merchandise. We do have a kind of back burner plan on that sort of thing. You may remember something like that being talked about. This was actually before I even joined. That will probably be resurrected or revived once we have the product launches and this kind of stuff in order. But it's really not a high priority for us now. I mean, we have our main business is the flagship products and also further product development. And that's what we're mainly concerned with now. Not a bad question, though. It's an absolutely fair question. It's just so specific that I can't really answer it very much or very well right now.
No, that's a good answer. I mean, you guys got your hands full with all the other stuff. Makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Danny. And who is next? I can't see any hands up.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Hello.
I can't see who's speaking, but oh yes, Mr. JJ, go ahead.
Yes. How you doing? I know the main focus right now is EverOwn, but yeah, I'm excited about the EverWallet that's been announced. How close behind EverOwn would you say EverWallet would be, available? If you can answer.
EverWallet is a very good thing to be excited about. It's of course we basically have two classes of product. One is for kind of business to business type of products, and those were always kind of the main or the initial main sort of focus. And then we have sort of consumer type products like EverWallet, and it is a very exciting product and really could solve a lot of issues. I can't really give you much in terms of timeline on that yet. It really is. We basically are trying to do things right from a tech perspective. So we have to, especially with something like a wallet, we have to make absolutely sure that the thing is secure, that it's developed properly, but also things like that the UI is intuitive and easy to use, precisely for the kinds of reasons that whoever it was that asked me earlier that, is there any sort of plan to make things easier? I think it was Melissa's actually, whether there's any plan to make things easier for the general consumer. And so there's actually a lot of stuff to consider with something like EverWallet, even though it seems really simple. So I can't really give much of a timeline on that. The EverRise will be first, and we'll get that to market as quickly as we can, whilst also, of course, making sure that we've made sure that it's safe and planned the launch well and planned the product itself well, and this sort of thing. We will get EverWallet into the market as as quickly as we can, because I don't know if you guys remember this, but Tyson actually came up with that product as a result of community feedback. Or early on in this project, a lot of our holders were starting to get dusting attacks, and a lot of people were losing a lot of money on them, and that was basically the inspiration to EverWallet. He just kind of came up with, hey, but what if you just put the wallet on the blockchain rather than having it on a hard drive or having it on a device. It's a genius little product. I think it could really do well. I think as a consumer product goes, I mean, I think it could really shake up the wallet market, not just the kind of, you know, software wallets, but actual hardware wallets too, because it's in some ways it's both safer and, you know, it doesn't have the risk of physical damage to the actual hardware wallet. It doesn't have that danger. So we are trying to get it done as quickly as we can, but EverOwn first, I'm afraid.
Understandable. Thank you for answering.
Thank you, and I'm afraid, like I said, it's not much of an answer, but we'll basically just get on with it as quickly as we can. Okay, now we have some questions. Keith, I've spoken to in chat a few times, but I don't think I've ever had a question from Keith. So Keith, please, the floor is yours.
Hey, Guard. Yeah, I'm just curious
Hey,
about
how's
the
it going?
KYC thing. If we're only going to be going with KYC customers, is that what we're talking about, or are we going to be allowing any customers non-KYC as well?
So, like I said earlier, we're looking for these kind of middle point answers, because we do know that people in the DeFi space are a little bit jumpy about money laundering rules or anti-money laundering rules. So there may be some form of passive service that we can offer, but we will, you know, we'll be a registered company very, very soon. And if we don't follow regulations that apply to us, then we're screwed. So that's why we, you know,
Right.
whatever our clients want to do or whatever, then that's kind of up to them. But we will have to follow the rules that apply to us. So
Just
we're
wondering what
looking
that
to design.
revenue side.
Pardon?
What do you think that would do to the revenue side if we only allowed KYC?
Once again, it's not a question of only allowing KYC or like clients that we have vetted and whatever. We're looking at other options too, so that we might be able to have like a more passive service that people can still sign up to, and we can have a little bit more volume like that.
Okay.
But I mean, you know, but also last I checked, people like Certic are doing pretty well. And, you know, they, as far as I know, they certainly follow the rules that apply to them. So, you know, they take contracts and they vet them quite carefully and this sort of thing. I mean, as far as I know, that's their business model. And if they don't follow the rules that apply to them, then they will also have to start doing so very, very quickly. So it's not at all an impossible thing to run a perfectly legitimate and legal business in the DeFi space. You know, people do that all the time. We have a lot of contacts who do that kind of stuff, and they are spectacularly successful, some of them. So, you know, there really isn't. It's really like a needless conflict that people have in their heads about the law and crypto. They need to work hand in hand for a very successful project.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Keith. And I think there was also, let's see, somebody else also had a question, but they have now disappeared. All right. Anybody else want to ask me anything? Shoe size? By the way, I have an oddly small shoe. Josh is back. Josh was the person who was wanting to ask a question. So Josh, please go ahead. Josh, the floor is yours. You have to unmute and then ask.
Okay, sorry, thanks. I've been gone for the last 3 weeks on vacation, so if you can point me to maybe answers to these questions that have already been, I don't know, on the website or whatever. But my questions are, first one with EverOwn. When a client wants to purchase EverOwn or to use the tool EverOwn, is it a one-time purchase, or will it be monthly fee, or how does that work? Are you able to say anything more about that?
So they will have to pay a flat fee and hold a certain amount of RISE in order to be able to use it. If in between they want to use it and they sell the tokens that the amount of EverRise, of course, amount of RISE tokens, if they sell them in between using the product more than once, then of course they won't be able to use it. But there will be like a flat fee also attached to it.
Okay, and that includes then service or maintenance from the EverRise team? Or would there
So,
be no need for a service or anything from the EverRise team after they've purchased EverOwn?
so there certainly isn't any. We don't actively maintain anything once the contract, if the contract is renounced to EverOwn, then that's just where it is. We don't really do anything with it. In fact, it's not even in our possession in any way. It's of course just in the blockchain, and that's what EverOwn does. If we go with the kind of tighter controls type of business model, then of course in the beginning we will run some kind of checks on the people that we do business with and on the contract itself. I stress again that we haven't really finished that discussion as to what level of scrutiny will be involved, but we might be doing a tiered model so that we have like an easier version and a tougher version, and people can choose which one they want so that they can best tailor their needs to their own community. But after that, we don't maintain anything. It's actually not even with us. It's just in the blockchain.
Okay. And a quick other question. I'm quite new to crypto, so maybe this is not so an intelligent question, but I've only used the pancake swap, and the question is there the chance that the liquidity pool would be low enough or get to maybe even zero that people would not be able to buy EverRise over pancake swap, or is that not possible? Or if it did get low enough, what would happen then if it got to a point where someone could buy it in one go? What's left of the liquidity pool in pancake swap?
So I have answered this question in some length, but I do appreciate that it's one that is common. So I'll give you a short version. All right. I think I mentioned this I have a long version of this following answer in the second AMA that I ever did. It's up on YouTube if you want to listen to it. It takes me about 15 minutes to go through it, but here's the short answer.
Yeah.
So the short version is this: in the liquidity pool, you have RISE and you have BNB. The more BNB you have in it, the more the RISE is worth, right? Because the liquidity pool is actually our pricing mechanism. So what it does is it maintains a constant product. So like it maintains like a steady ratio of the two numbers, i.e. the number of RISE and the number of BNB. So when you buy some RISE, what you actually do is you send BNB into the liquidity pool, and the liquidity pool sends you some RISE back, which means that there is now less RISE in the liquidity pool and more BNB, which means that the price has now gone up. You follow me so far?
Yeah.
Now that means that the more people buy out of the liquidity pool, i.e. the more BNB they put into the liquidity pool, the more the next token of RISE is going to cost. This is, by the way, why you have to add slippage to your purchase. And when that happens, the less RISE you have in the liquidity pool, the more the RISE is worth. So if there's the smallest number that can ever be reached, mathematically speaking, in the liquidity pool will be 1, and so a single RISE token will be left. But at that point, if it ever gets to that point, that single RISE token will be worth, 1 billion or something, some insane number of money. So there is effectively no way that people could ever really buy out the entire supply of RISE from PancakeSwap, because it would just get so expensive so quickly to keep buying it. And of course, when the price goes up, some people are going to sell. So I think humorously in that other AMA I did a long time ago, What I said is I will volunteer to sell my tokens back into the liquidity pool so that you guys can keep trading if we ever get to the point where there's one rise left. And I will happily take that hit and become a billionaire in the process.
That's very nice of you.
Thanks, Josh. It's a good question, and it is quite common, which is why I took it here now and also answered it in the second AMA. But it's a good question.
Thanks. Cheers.
Can I ask another question, Guard?
Who's that? Keith? Yes, go ahead.
Keith. So in regards to EverRise, once it's launched and we're like, it's kind of sounding to me like they were sort of becoming a more centralized company. And I'm just wondering, when we get paid our reflections for EverRise, it will be subject to some sort of a tax then at that point, right? Because it'll be paid to us as receiving a form of income for reporting.
So I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but so, I mean, every company is centralized, right? Every company has shareholders and it has a board of directors, and every company has its own, governance structure. So in that sense, we will be a centralized company, but so is every other company in the world. In fact, that's what a company really is.
I'm talking about once the reflections are paid through to us when we have EverWallet, I guess. Yeah.
So you will, so just like with all your other crypto, you will have to, pay your own taxes and this kind of thing. I guess I'm not really following the question, but you do get income in the sense that you do get reflections from the contract, from the EverRise contract.
Okay.
It's not of course us who has to worry about which laws might apply to you, because you are the person who actually gets them and you'll be holding them, right? So if you then want to take some income out of it, so let's say that you want to sell some of your reflections or something, then you will personally have to make sure that you follow all the laws that apply to you, right? So you might have to declare it in your taxes, or if you're in a very or this kind of thing. So it's just like with anything else, right? We will be one company among many. The corporate market is not in that way centralized. There's no central government that kind of runs, every company in the world. That's not certainly what we're doing.
Yeah.
We are just making sure that our own, bums are covered and that we can continue doing business. So that's why we follow the regulations that apply to us.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Peter, you go ahead.
One clarifying question. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, but wouldn't the minimum theoretical number of rise in the liquidity pool be 0.8 zeros and a 1?
So the product of Rise and BNB has to stay constant, which is why it's called the constant product equation. The smallest number so in order to keep that product the same, the smallest number that I can think, I'm happy to be proven wrong on this, but the smallest number in my mind has to be 1, right? Because 1, it can't be smaller than 1, because then that would mess up the product on the BNB side, because if you multiply by a number that's smaller than 1, you actually are dividing.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I was just asking because of the way that the token is set up. I don't really know the answer, but thanks.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody is
you clarify the answer right now.
Yeah, I mean, and I should also say that it's, by the way, it's entirely theoretical. We will never get to the point where there's a single Rise token left in the liquidity pool. People will sell before that. Once people see, if we ever start approaching that amount, then everybody will be so insanely rich that somebody will start taking some profit. So it's a completely theoretical problem. We will never reach that point.
We got to aim somewhere. Just joking.
Yeah, it's gotta aim high. Yeah, I made a joke about this some like a month, or I was not even in the team yet, like a month and a half ago. I made a joke about this with some of the guys on Discord, that we started selling fractionally. Help, our price is now reaching infinity, and if you can figure out why that joke is funny, then you and I can be friends. I mean, we can be friends otherwise. I'm not saying that, but if you figure out why that joke is funny, I think it's really funny. But I made that joke, so I probably am not the best person to judge. Anyway, that is actually all the time that we have, and it's nice to finish on a slightly silly note. And yes, Crypto Alien, you can be friends with me. You don't have to get that joke. Not a lot of people get my jokes. It's probably safe to say that, like, even of my friends, it's maybe 0.5% who actually get the jokes. Now, to the announcement, right? You've been waiting for this long and hard. Thank you very much for your patience. The announcement is, and I'm not very good at making announcements. The announcement is that when Tyson doxes, a certain other person will also be doxing, which is to say, drum roll, it's me, right? I will also be revealing my identity, and you'll see my face, and you'll know who I am, and so on and so forth. That is what will happen on the day of the great doxing. It's now come to the point where it is, in order to instill the kind of confidence that we want to instill in our clients, it is part of that process, because I do have this kind of odd and slightly ill-fitting public role in the project, because I do these AMAs, and there are like memes about me and this kind of thing. So it's therefore only right that I also do that, and kind of stand together with Tyson as he doxes himself. So that is the big announcement. I should also say that I'm looking to increase my involvement in EverRise, because when I joined, I told everybody that I am still in my day job, and I'm actually only doing this part-time. Tyson and I are discussing me taking a more sort of active role, although I mean it's not as though I haven't been working, but taking a more kind of steady, more kind of not quite employment, but that type of role in the project, which would mean that I will scale back my day job to the absolute minimum that I can, because it's still I still have projects there that aren't finished, and I will need to finish those, but I can probably scale back my day job so much that I can devote a kind of full-time existence, or full-time or something close to that anyway, to EverRise and this project. I'm very, very confident in this project. I'm extremely pleased about the sorts of people and the kind of caliber of people who have joined the project in the last few weeks. And I believe we have an excellent team and a really, really quite a special, launch pad for a really excellent business here. And it would be absolutely silly of me to let such an opportunity slip by my fingers. So I will be both doxing, and Tyson and I are discussing me coming in a more sort of something resembling full-time capacity. So that is the big announcement. Thank you all very much. I am not the best person to make announcements, which is why we have a marketing department and our incredibly talented visual designs people. But that is the best that I can do with it. I'll let them take over from here, and they'll probably have some kind of wonderful video and this sort of thing. So thank you all very much for your attention, and that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much. I'll see you again on Saturday, I mean. Bye-bye.